Good morning, good evening, good to who needs it. How have I not talked about Vivien Thomas? Holy shit. Sometimes I fixate so hard on something that I assume everyone must know it already. So, tetralogy of Fallot is a congenital heart defect characterized by four specific cardiac defects, famously associated with cyanosis in infants, and it was called blue baby syndrome. So, Vivien Thomas was the surgical assistant to Alfred Balloch, the doctor who famously completed the first experimental heart surgery. In general, but specifically on one of these infants. Prior to that landmark surgery, the heart was considered off limits, even for experimental surgery in humans. But Balloch became the darling of Johns Hopkins and was shadowed by doctors who flew in globally to meet him and watch him work. But when they got to Johns Hopkins, they had to contend with the fact that Balloch was not who they were really looking for. It was Vivien Thomas who had developed, perfected, and assisted the surgical technique and had coached Balloch through the surgery by standing on a chair and looking over his shoulder to tell him what to do. That's not to say Balloch hadn't been instrumental and wasn't brilliant, but he wasn't Vivien Thomas. Thomas wasn't allowed to take credit for developing the technique because he was black, and technically not a doctor. Thomas had taken a lab tech job, transitioning from work as a carpenter in the hopes of being able to save money toward medical school, but could not get in because of racial barriers, and also a huge financial loss. Balloch, by most accounts, took advantage of him. Thomas studied for medical school with the promise of aid to get into medical school while performing experimental surgeries in lab on animals, but was for a long time only paid as a janitor and subject to restrictions as a black staff member. He and Balloch battled on and off for better treatment and pay. Facing extreme prejudice, he was told, even after developing multiple surgery techniques and working as an instructor in the surgery department, that he would need to start over in undergrad if he wanted to pursue the degree that he taught. It wasn't until 1971, almost 30 years after the first successful cardiac surgery developed by Vivien Thomas, that he was recognized by Johns Hopkins as surgeons he had taught came into administration. In 1979, he was finally given an honorary doctorate and formally appointed faculty at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine in the surgery department where he had already been working for 37 years. In 2005, Johns Hopkins began splitting incoming freshmen into one of four colleges: Sabin, Taussig, Nathans, or Thomas.